Sophie's World. Chapter 1. Sophie, the manager of the world. If you were to choose someone to run a company at the age of 15, there's no doubt that Sophie was the best choice. Everyone, it's a matter of calculation. It had been, from the program booklet color spill from his coloring, which was written with military precision, to the to-do list he happily ticked off every night before bed. Even the time he woke up. 6:38 minutes, it was exactly 1 a.m., not a minute later, not a minute earlier. Sophie loved order. Loved this. He loves to get things done on time, loves to be responsible. At school, everyone asked him for advice, sometimes even the teacher himself. They also consulted with him. One of the kids jokingly called him manager. The whole high school had given it. But the truth is, deep down in Sophie's heart, there was one little thing that only Nika knew about. She wanted to be seen, not just for what she did, but for herself. Not just because of duty. Knowledgeable and clever, but also like a girl full of thoughts, imagination, worries, and laughter. Nika was the only one who understood this. Her best friend since 3rd grade. They had grown up together, eaten ice cream together, cried together. Nika always... Sophie stopped the spoon halfway to her mouth. For a few moments the world stopped. It really did. Not because she didn't know how babies were born, she had learned about it a long time ago. He had read these things. Rather, because in the program life is nothing. It was not written. Little sister's birthday is on the 15th. Birthday? He said. What? You mean, a child? No. Yes, her mother said happily. Finally, your little sister is coming. Dad added. Think about it, a cute little girl you'll be a role model for. But neither of them noticed that there was no glimmer of pride in Sophie's eyes. There was a kind of silence. The role model? The little sister? In my room? That day, Sophie in the notebook she opened a new page and wrote. Operation. Survival in the new world. Situation. Critical. Danger. Reduced parental attention. New arrival in the... Yes, everyone. What is under control? Nika frowned. You only say this when there is nothing. What is not under control? Sophie was about to say something when the bell rang and they had to leave. That day, even in science class, when the teacher was talking excitedly about while the cell division was talking, Sophie's mind was elsewhere, in her bedroom, where a second bed was now to be added. In the program office, pouring its now full of lines. It was corrosion. That night, for the first time after time, there was nothing to tickle. Just sat on the bed, hugged his legs, and looked at the door. From behind the door, there was a sound of laughter. Her mother was coming, and the sound of things moving for little Sarah. At that moment, he picked up the tip of his pen and wrote in bold letters on his notebook. I'm still here. Chapter 2. Sarah's arrival, Sophie's departure. Sarah was born on a rainy day from that rain. Soft Vancouver sandals that don't clog or allow you to walk comfortably. Sophie was sitting by the window. She was neither excited nor afraid. Something in the middle of nowhere feeling. The only thing on his mind was whether he was really ready. Set of all weather or not to share something with a 3-kilo creature. When Sarah was born, everyone in the family celebrated. Mom, the elder, came forward and said, Oh God, I'll sacrifice her. What's her name? Baba replied with gusto. Sarah, Grandma said. Bah, what a beautiful name. Like a princess. Of course, like a princess, Sophie thought to herself. It's him. Because now everyone has become his subjects. From that day on, home they became a small kingdom ruled by a queen. It was Sarah. Her voice filled the whole house. Mom and Dad were startled with every moan. They would wake him up, sing to him, even touch him to burp him. Hit. Sophie once said. No one would slap me when I sneezed. He hit. Mom, just a crooked smile. He said. Honey, you've grown up. And this is exactly the same sentence. It was something Sophie hated. Growing up means, you don't have time, wait, do it yourself, you don't need attention anymore. Growing up means, From now on, it's someone else's turn. 7. Things weren't any better at school either. Several of his friends, who had previously respected him, now spoke to him less. One of them had said, "You've become very serious these days." Sophie had replied, "Because I have a child at home." Mayroom sham. No joke. But nothing. No one understood, except Nika. One day after school, Nika came home. "Oh, Sophie." Sarah had just fallen asleep and Mom had finally found some time to take a shower. In the meantime, Nika and Sophie were sitting on the floor of the room, staring into the silence. Nika said, "That's strange. You always wanted a sister, didn't you?" Sophie sighed. "Sister, yes. But not a little screamer. The woman who is all what's up?" I was confused. I wanted someone to watch movies with, talk to, and complain about school. Not someone who would make my mom stop making time for me or even ask me about my grades. "How many exams have I taken?" Nika said. "Well, maybe it's time for you to learn how to be important without being seen." Sophie looked at him in surprise. "What does that mean?" Nika shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe you should learn that being invisible doesn't always mean being invisible. It is not valuable." Sophie said nothing. She didn't know if Nika's answer was right or not. She just knew that something was weighing on her heart, a kind of longing for herself, for the days when everyone was still together. What was wrong with him? That night, when his father sat at the dinner table. Today Sarah smiled. "Really? A real smile," Mom said with gusto. "Yes. Did you see? It doesn't have any teeth yet, but it was a perfect smile." Sophie smiled too. One of those smiles that no one understands is not real. Only one sentence was running through her mind. If Sarah is smiling, why do I feel like I'm withdrawing into myself? Chapter 3. Silent Rebellion. Sophie had decided to find herself again. Not just find herself, but to prove that she was still the same Sophie, the CEO of the past. The same girl everyone counted on. The same girl who had no projects. It wouldn't be complete without him. The same person in the group. School holidays, you were always the leader. So, when the science teacher said that the project this semester's science class should be a group class, Sophie said without hesitation, "I have my own group. Nika, come to my team." Nika said as usual, "Of course. Just please, this year, the Mountain of Fire model. Let's not make a fuss, okay?" Sophie with a half smile, "I promise we'll make something new," he said. Something special. In his mind, he wanted to shine once more. Everyone looked, he brought the spotlight back to himself. He became the center of attention again, not because of his sister's birthday. Sophie said, "So, does that mean I shouldn't do my project because a baby is teething?" Mom, with eyes that were redder from sleepiness, just looked at him and said, "Just one night, Sophie. You're strong. Hey, help me." He was strong. He had always heard that. But he didn't know that being strong meant being from the project. She should be important so that her mother can be comfortable being a mother. He didn't know that being strong meant staying silent when he wanted to scream, "I'm a child too." You can. Tomorrow, with puffy eyes, he went to school without any plans for the project. When the group had an idea, they presented theirs. It was Sophie's turn. She just stood there. Silence. Nika said worriedly next to her, "Tell me what you wrote last night." But he hadn't written anything. He just stared at the teacher. In the eyes. The others. To his own silence. Then he said, "We are still investigating." And that's it. For the first time, Bar had nothing to offer in his life. The teacher said, "Well, better hurry. Get the result fast." That night, when Sarah was crying again and Mom and Dad were busy, Sophie sat down at her desk. She took out a blank notebook and wrote, "New program. 1. Refund taking position. 2. Finding myself again. 3. Proving that I still matter. 4. And, maybe, discovering who I am anyway." And then? Just then, the sound of something breaking came from downstairs. Then Sarah's voice, Mom's voice, Dad's "Aya." Sophie just smiled bitterly and whispered, "Welcome to the realm of Queen Sarah." Chapter 4. Storm in the Corridor. Things were getting out of control at the school. Ever since the project The Science was ruined, the children were few. They had just started to treat Sophie differently. Oh, see. No one else he came to ask for her help. No one said, "Sophie can fix it." Even the literature teacher, one day after correcting a 7-page essay, said, "Sometimes writing less is saying more, Sophie." That evening, when the bell rang and the children were leaving the classroom, Sophie, as always, was with the schedule office. Rezi Ash was walking down the hallway, but behind him were several kids with patches. Patching. He's the same guy who used to be the boss, right? Yeah, but now he looks more like a tired robot. 7. And another one said, "Obviously it doesn't matter anymore. His mom brought a new baby, and I've gone into reserve mode." Energy. At that moment, something broke in Sophie's heart. Not slowly, not without voice, but just like cracking glass, which suddenly crumbles. He returned, with the notebook in his hand, not with the intention of fighting. He just said with eyes filled with tears and a voice that trembled, "What are you doing? Do you understand that you wake up one day and no one sees you anymore? That whatever you were, you're gone. Why is it so bad because a baby is born? You know what? It's so hard to be serious, but everyone just laughs and says you're too serious." Hey? Everyone fell silent. Even Nika, who was standing a little further away, looked at him with eyes full of concern. Sophie continued, "I'm serious. Because there's no one who wants to be serious for me. Because my mom doesn't have time anymore. Because my dad is tired. Seth. Because everyone thinks I'm strong. And nothing. No one. I wonder if maybe I just want someone to hug me one day and say, 'I understand, it's hard.'" No one said anything. Just silence. A silence that was heavy. Sad, but true. Then, Sophie turned and walked. He rushed out of school. He didn't go home that day. First he went to the park near the school. He sat on the bench. Notebook. He opened it, but couldn't write anything. Just a drop. There were tears that slowly fell on the screen. When he got home, his mother was waiting for him at the door. Worry in her eyes. Her eyes were shining. Sarah was in her arms, chewing on her mother's nails. Mother said, "Where have you been?" "I got worried," Sophie said in a tired voice. "Somewhere where Sarah wasn't." Mom frowned. "Sophie." And for the first time, Sophie shouted, "Mom, I'm tired. I'm tired of being ignored. It's like I'm not allowed to be sad anymore when you keep saying you've grown up. I'm still a child. Tam, just like Sarah. The only difference is that I know how to hide my anger, but that doesn't mean I don't feel pain." Silence. Mom didn't say anything. She just stood there with a blank face. Oh, full of shock. Sarah seemed to have gone silent too. Even she understood that she should be calm now. After a few moments, Mom said quietly, "You're right. I didn't think it would be like this." And with the same hand that hugged Sarah, the other hand he stretched his arm towards Sophie. Come and hug me." And Sophie, after the weak for the first time, he threw himself into his mother's arms. He cried, without embarrassment, without anger, just crying. Mom said slowly, "You are still a girl. I am great. And you always will be. Even if Sarah loses 1,000 teeth. Bring it." Sophie grinned in her mother's arms and said in a hoarse voice, 1,000? Well, at least we have time to buy toothbrushes. Mom laughed. Sarah made a low voice. He pulled himself together. And for a few moments, it was as if the world had come back to its place a little bit. Chapter 5. Voices in the Silence. A few days had passed since that rainy day at school. Since the day Sophie could no longer remain silent. Since that long night of tears and reconciliation, something had changed in the atmosphere of the house. Maybe Sarah was still the same. In a way, she would cry intermittently, and Mom would still walk around sometimes with eyes red from exhaustion, But there was something soft in her gaze at Sophie. It had gotten wet. For example, now every night before bed, even if Sarah was crying, Mom would sit next to her for 5 minutes. No phone calls. No half-hearted conversations. Just to be. And those 5 minutes were a world to Sophie. Things got a little better at school, too. After the storm that day, there was no more someone behind him as a patch. He didn't patch. Even the child. Those who had only been waiting for him to make a mistake yesterday now looked at him with a strange kind of respect, not the dry respect of managers, but something like understanding. The kind of silence that said, we don't understand exactly what's going on, but we know it's not easy. Nika was by his side, as always, but now more patient. Intimate. More. One day after school, while they were sitting in the schoolyard eating chips, Nika said, "Rare these days the boss a game of chance." Sophie laughed. "Maybe because I realized that being a boss always means being a friend. It is not about being available." Nika said, "Maybe because you know yourself now." And for the first time, Sophie really didn't know what to say. That night, Sarah finally managed to get a few full hours of sleep. Mom and Dad looked at each other in silence, astonished. Sophie took advantage of the opportunity. She went into Sarah's room, which was now in a corner. The bag was full of dolls. He sat down on the floor and looked at the little one whose lips were now half closed. He looked at her, who was open and smiling in her sleep. He whispered, "You know, little one, you made a lot of noise. But you made me hear my own voice." And he himself was surprised by this statement. A few minutes later, the notebook he brought it back, the same notebook that had been soaked with tears a while ago. This time, he wrote quietly. Program new. Version the truth finana. 1. Love myself without the need to be perfect. 2. Help Mom too, but not always when she asks for help. 3. Remember, Nika is always by my side, and that means a lot. For I have to do things that I'm not seen sometimes, but I'm still important. 5. And maybe, being a sister isn't bad either. At that moment, a familiar little voice was heard. Sarah stirred a little and grunted. Sophie bent down, took her sister's little hand, and said very softly, "Don't be afraid." Chapter 6. Sophie shines again. A month had passed since Sophie had exploded in the school hallway. Life was still busy and challenging, but Sophie was no longer the girl who always spent time in the office. I hug her tightly. He did it for everyone. Control the thing. Now that girl was breathing. Project the scientific work was finally over, not completely. The most important project and exhibition, but full of thought, effort, and creativity. Even their teacher said, "Maybe strange the most important project this year, but definitely one of the most creative." "The most it is," Nika said mischievously. "All it's because of Super History Manager." And Sophie just laughed. Not from that laugh. Those who want to hide something. From that laughter which means, yes, I'm still the same. But it doesn't have to be all that much anymore. What should I control so that I am worth it? Relationships are smooth at home too. It was getting wet. Mom was trying harder to make some just for Sophie. For example, some nights Sarah turns to Dad. He handed it over and walked down the alley with Sophie. Vancouver's secluded beaches, with a cup of coffee, hot chocolate in their hands, and words that reached deep into the heart. He left. One night, Mom said, "I thought because you're strong, hey, you don't need to take care." But I was wrong. Sophie smiled softly. "I thought I could only be seen when I was perfect." That was also wrong. And they both laughed. Sophie Cam Little had learned the difference. It's part of life. The difference between a baby and a teenager. Between being tired and being ignored. Between being perfect and being enough. One day, while sitting in the school library, a boy from another class he approached him and said, "Excuse me, I heard you know the project well. Will you help me?" Sophie paused. Then she said with a smile, "Only if you know that management means collaboration. Not that I am all what should I do." The boy laughed. He said, "Deal set." And at that moment, Nika waved from a distance. Her gaze, he said. You're back, but this time for real. More. On the way back home, notebook he opened his famous. It was so full that there was no more room to write. But on the page finally, in blue pen, he wrote, Sophie version final. I still have plans. I am still responsible. I accept. But now I've learned. Sometimes letting go is finding. Sometimes being ignored is an opportunity to see others. And sometimes failure is just a new way to shine. The sound of crying Sarah came from inside the house. Dad shouted, Help! This little one. He is playing the guitar. Woman with a pot. Sophie laughed, closed the office door and said, I'm coming, Queen. Little one. And laughing, he walked into the house. The same house which had now found its place. Written by Rehana Rizzoli.